Laura is an entrepreneur. She's a speaker and an author. She is the president of VisionEdge Marketing. She is also a board member for several organizations, a globally recognized expert in customer-centric growth and marketing performance management. She is a leading voice in replacing random acts with customer-centric strategies that deliver measurable and smarter growth. So with that, Laura, take it away, my friend. The stage is yours.
Thank you. You're very, very kind in your introduction. And we are going to shift gears a little bit. And I know there's some people in the audience who are business owners, and I want to speak to all of you in a way that I hope will help you grow your business faster. So I just want to take you back to when I was young. As a young person, in order to earn money, I raked leaves, I shoveled snow, I went door to door and sold world's finest chocolate. And I learned from this experience that to create business value, that is, make money, I needed to create customer value. And later on, a few years later, I joined Junior Achievement. Maybe some of you heard of that amazing organization. And even though I had a pretty healthy sense of customer centricity by then, not this idea that we need to cater to every customer's whim, which I think many of us find ourselves, struggling to do, is to satisfy every customer's whim. That's not customer centricity. It's the idea that the customer needs to be at the center of your business decisions, the decisions you make about your business in order to create that business value. Maybe some of you have some similar experiences to mine. And as I walk you through some ideas today on how you might be able to grow your business faster, I want you to consider, are you customer centric? How could you be more customer centric? How could you create more customer value to achieve sustainable long-term growth? That's my purpose. And so here's one thing I know. I have found that it does not matter whether you are a really big company or a very small firm. It takes 4 game changers associated with customer centricity for sustainable growth. And we're going to talk about all 4 of them very kind of rapidly. And my gift will be a free customer-centric worksheet, which I will also make sure is in the chat. So here's the thing. I have never met a business owner, no matter how large or small their company is, that didn't want to grow, no matter what, whether that's grow revenue, grow profit, grow market share, grow the number of customers they serve. And the research by KPMG, PwC, McKinsey, all those other big guys pretty much says growth is the top mandate for anyone running a business. So I want to make sure I'm in the right place. And if you run a business and growth is important to you, I hope you'll put yes in the chat, because that's where we're headed next. All right, so here's my key question. Do you want to grow? Because that's who I'm speaking with today. And I hope that that is something that resonates with you. And if you do want to grow, you need to be able to answer 2 questions. The first question is, where are you today? Because it's hard to get where you want to go if you don't know your starting point. And that means your revenue, but it also means the number of customers, which customers, your market share, what market you play in, and how you are positioned competitively. And the second then question is, where do you want to go? And that requires you to define your target market. What are your growth goals? Are you wanting to be a major player and own a category? Do you want to expand into new markets? Is there certain customers you need to retain? Is there some particular things that you want to do to grow business value, such as new products or new services? Okay, so maybe you're thinking you've got this customer centricity thing down. But before you think at that, I want to kind of share with you the 4 most common approaches to growth, because you might find that actually one of these others is how you approach growth today. And then talk with you about maybe why you want to make a shift. And even if you are customer centric, why that's important, to give you some validation for that. So the first most common approach to growth, by the way, is product centric, because we all have products and services. Whether it's coaching services, that's a service and a product. And the idea behind that is that if we build it, they will come. And these are, business leaders who are all about innovation. They might even make things before the man exists. And if you can kind of go back in time, a good example of that would be Apple's Newton, which came out well before we ever had what we call smartphones. And it was in the category called personal digital assistants. That category doesn't exist. Neither do Newtons. I had one. I wish I had kept it. It's probably be worth some money. The second common way is sales-centric. This is an organization that's all about making the number. They're pounding the pavement all the time. Sales drives everything. It's what you think about day in, day out. Is what wakes you up at 2 a.m. in the morning. And the risk of being sales-centric is that you overpromise, you sell against your strategy, and you think in the short term because you're so desperate to make that number. The third approach is market-centric, and they are like a kissing cousin to product-centric, but they're more about drafting the wave. The product-centric people, they're ahead of the market. They're making the trend. Market-centric people are drafting the wave. They're riding a trend. And a good example that we all know is Zoom, because the product-centric company that made online conversations like this possible was Citrix, which you may or may not even be aware of. But then Zoom came along and they pretty much now own a key part of that market. Lastly is customer-centric. These are the organizations whose decisions are anchored in creating customer value. That is a key thing. And we'll talk a little bit more about what those characteristics are. But I want to give you some data about why customer centricity is emerging as the most important approach. And it has to do with the fact that we live in the age of the customer. The customer is in control. So here's some things to know. And I took this research from Gartner and Forrester, and it's relatively new, just within the last year or so. 91% of your customers have at least one supplier in mind before they ever begin to evaluate options. 89% of your customers are using generative AI in at least one part of their purchasing process. 82% of your prospects and customers expect some form of personalization across all the marketing and sales interactions. 80% of your prospects and customers are self-directing their buying journey. And that's a big change because in 2015, that was only 57%. And your last piece of information that will be important to know, 73% of the people you want to engage with actively avoid suppliers, whether that's a coaching service, a technology product, or any kind of offering, who send irrelevant outreach to them. So think very carefully about all those posts and emails that you do. Okay, so with that in mind, now that you know why that customer centricity is important, what does that mean? It means that you have an operating model that places customers at the center of every business decision. Remember this important point from Peter Drucker. The purpose of business is to create a customer. Customer value drives business value, not the other way around. If you take away nothing else from today, please take away that thought. Customer value drives business value, not the other way around. It is what creates that loyalty, the referrals, and resilience in uncertain times. Okay, with that, I want to take us to a game changer called customer insights. This is the very important point about really understanding your customer. I'll give you a quick story. My grandfather had 5 grandchildren. And one of the things that he enjoyed doing was going fishing. And if you had the opportunity to spend the weekend at my grandfather's house in the summer, odds are you were going to go fishing. You got dropped off on Saturday, and then the family all arrived on Sunday, and we had dinner together. So here you are, you're 4 or 5 years old, and it's Saturday afternoon, you've been dropped off, and you know that Papa's going to ask you a question. Now, I've been asked this question before, so I thought I was pretty smart in anticipation of this question. And Papa would always ask this first question: what kind of fish are we fishing for? And being 4 years old and thinking that I had this nailed down, I said something like blue ones. And my grandfather, who was very smart and outsmarted me every single time, would say, great, go tell Grandma we're going to go fish for bluegill tomorrow, so that we can get everything we need prepared for that, because that's going to tell you what bait you're going to use, where you're going to fish, and when you're going to fish. So you get up in the morning, you head to the fishing area, and that's when Papa asks you the second most important question. And if you haven't guessed what it is, I'll tell you. It's where do we want to put our pole? Because you want to look around and see where others are fishing, but you also need to know the fish. Does it like shallow or deep? Does it like it sunny or shady? Does it like clear water or reedy? This is really important questions, and hopefully helping you think through how well do you know the kinds of customers that you want to go fishing for. What do they value? How do they buy? What makes them stay? This is really important questions that a lot of people can't answer. Do your homework. Ask your customers. Create a customer advisory board. Do some research, right? Of course, you're going to want some market data to add to that to help you kind of flesh out and get context. And don't forget the competition, because there's other people fishing in that lake. So why do you win? Why do you lose? And how are you positioned? Because if you don't have good data, everything you do when it comes to your marketing and sales will become a random act. Okay, that takes us to this third point, growth strategy in customer-centric terms. So there's a great book I'm going to recommend. It's called Necessary Endings by Dr. Henry Cloud. And he has an amazing metaphor inside this book about a rose bush. So I love to garden. Maybe some of you do as well. So imagine that you have selected a small rose bush to put in your garden, and you can envision what that rose bush is going to look like when it's mature. And he talks about the fact that strategy is a lot like having a rose bush that you are nurturing into this amazing, magnificent, glorious bush. Something that is really just going to be magical in your garden. And he says, in order to do that, you have to be willing to prune. And so I want you to think about that in reference to the strategies that you use. So here's a way to think about it. If what you are doing is not creating customer value, prune it. If it's creating some value, but it's draining resources away from things that will create greater value, think about those rose flowers, those roses. You want those big, glorious roses. You might actually have to cut off living parts of the bush in order to get those magnificent roses. Prune it if it is creating some value, but draining energy and resources. And lastly, if it's of value, but it's not enabling you to create that glorious rose bush that you have in your mind, if that is, you're not able to make a business that thrives and achieves its mission, prune it. All right. Now, the last thing I want to leave you with about strategy is PR, social media, email, events. These are not strategies. These are tactics to serve your strategy. Strategies are things like, we're going to go after an adjacent market because we are going to leverage an existing niche that we already have expertise in to enter a neighboring market. Or we're going to use a tipping point strategy. We're going to win in this market by acquiring a critical mass of ideal customers to become the brand of choice. Or maybe it's a kingpin strategy. We're going to target the most influential market leaders in this particular segment whose adoption will drive others. Or maybe it's an expand and retain. We have a great set of customers. There's lots of opportunity inside their walls. We're going to try and find ways to expand into other business units inside this company. So that is a way to think about strategy. And that takes us to growth chamber number 4. It's very important, and I don't want to skim over it, but I know we're running out of time, so we'll hopefully pick up a conversation with each other. And that is operational excellence. This is about plans, processes, and performance. Remember that a plan is what translates strategy into action. 70% of strategies never cross the finish line. Only 30% do. So it's really important to connect the activities to customer-centric outcomes and eliminate those random acts and to replace them with deliberate roadmaps. That means you need to have processes. Start with your customer-facing processes first, and empower people that work with you, for you, your partners, to make the right decisions. And track the right kinds of measures. Things like, how hard or easy is it to do business with you? What kind of customer acquisition rate do you have? What's your customer retention rate? Are you creating customer lifetime value? What does your customer referral rate look like? These are all the kinds of things that you may want to be thinking about. Okay, next steps. Audit your operating model. Are you truly customer-centric? In a moment, I'll put a link into a worksheet that will help you answer that question. Answer the 2 fishing questions. Who is your ideal customer and where do they gather? Think about your strategy. Replace those random acts with one deliberate customer-centric growth strategy, just one. And lastly, think about operations and measurement. Map your customer-facing processes and add one customer-centric measure to what you report on. Because if you do this, you will go from being reactive to empowered, from relying on intuition to insight, from running an ad hoc organization to being more strategic, to go from being in an activity grind out mode to accountability. I hope you found this really helpful. I will put this worksheet in, and I look forward to connecting with all of you at some point.
Wonderful. Thank you, Laura. Oh my gosh, that was so good. I did put the link in there for people to click on as well, so it should work. I don't know if your link will work because I don't know why it's weird. StreamYard is weird, but I did put the link in there, so click on the link. Definitely check out her worksheet. And Laura, you are such a wealth of information. Oh my gosh. I just, as you're speaking, I'm like, wow, she just knows her stuff inside out and backwards. Like, I'm so grateful to have you in my life. And I'm so grateful that you're here to educate us and help us to understand how to serve our customers better, how to really position ourselves in a way that can have that growth, have that massive impact. So thank you so much. You're just amazing.
I am grateful to you, Allie, in every way. So thank you for being such a wonderful friend and supporter.
Well, thank you. You're awesome.